So guys, as we know, right, in Optimizely, nowadays the headless architecture, headless CMS, and decoupled CMS-based website or composable architecture nowadays in a very hot topics. And we also know Optimizely is now offering the Optimizely Graph Services, which is it is a graph service where we can query the all the CMS content from a single endpoint. And like we know all the content are stored in the Optimizely graph. It is similar to Optimizely find search and navigations where whatever the content we publish in the Optimizely CMS, this goes to the Optimizely find search and navigation services. Similarly, Optimizely Graph offering similar services. All the content what we publish is indexed or goes to the Optimizely Graph server, and we can query those data from the GraphQL. In today's session, we will explore some alternatives like in the Optimizely CMS. If you want to use the GraphQL headless architecture, what other alternatives apart from the Optimizely Graph services? And now we'll see there are a few concerns, not concerns, but considerations where we need a more control on the graph query and the schema or like a response. If you remember, earlier in the content API, when we get the response, we get all the attributes of the default content property, like of the content property, created, modified, language, content link, fallback language, and we were kind of doing some customizations or in the response to get rid of those unused property or inbuilt property which are not required on the front end. It is something similar also happening in the Optimizely Graph services, where it will, showing all the content default properties as well in the schema, in the response. But yeah, the plus point in the graph, you can only query the required property, what you need, but still the schema is still accessible. Someone can make a query on the front end and can get the, like other properties access as well, like ID or other internal properties. Uh, so we will see quickly Optimizely Graph services. I hope many of are aware of the Optimizely Graph services. Last time we had one session with the Optimizely SaaS, which is inbuilt having a support for the graph services where we can query the CMS data, and we can query that one in the our CMS front end. We'll see few concerns that or considerations that we can see in the GraphQL architecture. So when we design a GraphQL based or headless architecture, we need to understand how we'll create the data, how we'll get the response, how data is stored, how it is synchronized with the graph service. There are some content legal issues where we are storing. So try to overcome that few considerations. We have explored a couple of approaches where we can have more control on the GraphQL and the graph servers. Still with the Optimally CMS, we can have a custom headless architecture with the custom GraphQL server. In this, we use the HotChocolate GraphQL, which is .NET Core open source GraphQL server that you can integrate not only with the Optimally CMS but for any .NET Core applications. But here we have seeing the demo practically that how can we leverage that HotChocolate open source GraphQL server to work with the Optimally CMS to serve the content to our headless architecture. Before we jump to that, let me just quickly recap on the Optimally Graph services. I hope you guys can see my screen. I'm just trying to access one of my beta access for the Optimizely SaaS platform. And this is Optimizely CMS SaaS version, where we know it's like, the software as a services for the CMS. And we don't have a access to deploy any code or anything. We'll just get the subscription of the CMS with the GraphQL inbuilt support, and we can just get the data in the front end, design the front end architecture and the headless architecture. So this is the Optimizely Graph services. Yeah, we also have a Optimizely Graph service. You can also use with the Optimizely CMS as a pass in your code base. You can install the Optimizely Graph package, and you can have like similar graph service interface in your CMS pass version as well. Here, when we see like at least all your content types, so whatever the content we have in our CMS model that are synchronized in the GraphQL, and you can see what content types are, what are the properties here. Like there are all the properties of the content, internal properties, as well as your content activity properties are indexed over here, and you can query all your content type. We will not see detail how to write a query for this one, because I hope you have got an idea of the basic GraphQL syntax, how to write a query and how to fetch the data. In the Optimizely graph services, it comes with the Optimizely graph content sync job. So whenever you publish the content, your content sync with the Optimizely graph services, and that is written back on your graph query response. So it is not directly doing any query on your Optimizely CMS database, but your data should be indexed in your Optimizely graph services. So it's like it is indexed at the Optimizely graph service environment. So as we know, it is like available as a software as a services, and this Optimizely graphs you can still use on your Optimizely CMS as a platform as a services, where you have a control on the code and deployment, software as a services, and on-prem. So these graphs is like full set of rich capabilities of the graph, where you can query any content, your blog, component, pages. You can do the listing, filtering, paginations. You can have like faceted autocomplete. It also like provide, as we just seen, that inbuilt GraphQL ID, where you can just query your your data from the Optimally Graph services. It requires a synchronization job to index the content in the graph services. No custom code required, so you don't need to write any custom code to sync your content to the graph services. This job will take care of sync all your content from the CMS database to the graph services. The only thing, like unable to customize your query, schema, and response. That means whatever the schema you can see over here, it is Optimizely graph service will take care. You don't have a control to remove any particular schema or a model. You cannot change the schema of the graph. So it's just like out of box. You can have a full set of features and ability to query any content with filtering, listing, but you cannot modify your query. You cannot modify the schema, or even you cannot modify the response what you get. For example, if I'm just writing one quick query, I want all the pages from the CMS of type article page, and I want like for the name. So this query is free, so it will just query all the article pages from the CMS and return the name. This is your response, all right? So it is just what like will all like out of box, but yeah, you cannot change it. Even you don't require to change it, because it is have everything whatever you need. Like you can filter by the language, limit, ID, skip, advanced filtering. That all is out of the box in the graph services. So I recommend, unless you have any specific custom need, we should use Optimizely Graph as your headless architecture, unless any specific concerns that I will share in the next screen. So there are example like customer want a still using Optimally CMS, but they have a on-premises solution. They are not using Optimally DXP because as a company policy or an organization policy, they cannot store the content outside of the kingdom or the network. They want to keep everything in-house in their own servers or own cloud platform. In that case, they cannot use Optimizely Graph service because this data goes to the Optimizely Graph uh, outside of the company or organization's network. And there might be some reasons, some customers, they are very conscious about the content where they are stored. They might not use Optimizely Graph. Sometimes front end want some specific GraphQL query or some custom parameters, or sometimes they want some specific response in a specific custom query as well for any advanced or custom front end headless applications. And in that case, uh, we may need to do some customizations in the graph query, but here we cannot do in the Optimizely Graph. It is almost not required, but yeah, in case there is a few cases where it might require some customization on the GraphQL. Another thing like, the front end, your website might want some mixed data. Means they want the data not only from the only CMS, but there's some business logic where some data coming from the CMS from a particular page or a component. Along with that, maybe few fields or property, they might want to return from the XML localizations or DB localizations because, in the front end, all your static captions, buttons, label are stored in the either XML file or localizations. You might want to return those along with your content. Example, if you have a hero blog with the title, image, and the button, where button caption is coming from the either CMS or localizations. In that case, GraphQL might be not able to return those your resources or language file. It may be a case where there is some custom database, custom tables. You might using dynamic data source or on the database, and you want to send the mixed data from CMS and some other source in your graph response. So in that case, something we need some customization of the graph services. One more thing, advanced security and access level. So here, currently, what we are seeing, uh, you can access all the properties. So whatever schema you can see in your graph server, that all schema, all property you can access. There's no restrictions. But take an example for commerce or for CMS, maybe a particular property or a field of the content type is restricted. Not everyone can use it or see it, right? It basically like permission, okay, like example pricing or some internal information of the content that specific field, right, that you want to restrict for a particular roles and users, right? So that is not currently we can achieve, but yeah, if you plan to use your custom hot GraphQL server integration, you have full advanced custom control. You can restrict what content type can be accessed by the which particular GraphQL client as per the authentication and what access you provide in the CMS, and you can restrict the not only the content type, but you can also have a restriction on the query level. What query you can do? It might be multiple query. You can restrict the schema. You can restrict the content type, even the property of the particular content type. So this is additional things that it might be you need for a very enterprise level or very advanced complex architecture where you need this kind of a website in the front end headless, and we'll see how we can achieve this one with Optimally CMS. Uh, so we'll see like Optimizely CMS as a base. We'll take a Optimizely CMS 12 Alloy site as a reference. And on top of that, we will see how to install the GraphQL, how to enable the banana cake pop-up, which is popular GraphQL IDE that you can make a query. It is something similar to Optimizely GraphQL IDE. So what we'll see, your custom GraphQL server, how we can enable it, how we can install it. In this sense, we don't need any job because we are not indexing any content. We can directly make a query to Optimizely CMS database using content loader or repository. We retrieve the content and we can return the graph response. So whatever you publish, you can immediately get it. Yeah, if you want, you can add your own custom caching logic. There is something inbuilt available in the HotChocolate Graph Server where you can implement the caching on the query, or you can have your own caching if you want. Query the content directly from the CMS database or any data source, and you can respond, the next data, as I said, in the graph response. Authorizations, we can do access level on the schema level, content type, or a query level. We can only expose required content in schema, like not all the property of the content or a content type. You can write your own DTO object or a GraphQL model, and you can map your content type with your GraphQL model, and you only expose the schema and the data what you want. Content mutation, right? Updates. So like currently the GraphQL support only to query the data. You cannot do the update or patch. Here you can write. So instead of utilizing your content management API, right? You can use the GraphQL mutation where you can update or create the content from the front end to Optimizely CMS. So that is what additional things you can also do. You can create the content, you can update the particular field of your content type, any content type, and that so this is up to developer the requirement how you want to do the customizations and to the requirement. Full custom control for headless architectures. So it is moreover developer friendly. If you need to have a custom solutions as per your custom architecture, headless architecture, and your own need, you can choose this approach. Otherwise, it is all everything is available out of the box with the GraphQL services optimizely for your standard front end applications. Unless you have something similar that you might be need in your architecture, you may opt this alternative to work with the optimizely CMS. So let's see in action. Anyone have any questions, concerns before we jump to the hands-ons to you know integrate the hot chocolate in the yellow sample site? Feel free to raise your hand if you have any concerns before we start. Yeah, please. Yeah, so it's possible to return data from the parent pages. We require to inherit data down from parent pages to child one to avoid duplicating data across multiple pages. Can Graph do this? Yes. So how we model the content type in our CMS. Like if you prefer the Alloy sample site, we have a site page data as a base content type where we have a title, descriptions, meta keywords, and we have a content type inherited from the site page data. So yeah, that all you can do whatever we do in the CMS modeling structure. Same way you can replicate, and you can inherit the data from the parent base class, or like from parent page. So like here if you see like parent page from the CMS, yeah, maybe you can write your own code. Like if you want to return the, yeah, understand, yeah, so it's not classes but parent page, yes. So if you return the page from the CMS tree about us and you want to return some data from the parent page in the CMS, yeah, you can write your own query to get the parent page, whatever data you want from the page that you can access and send back as a response of the child page. So yes, it is possible. That is what benefit is in the your custom GraphQL server. You can get the data from anywhere in your query. Current page, what you are passing to get the data, or any parent pages, or any children, or any custom source. As I said, mixed data, right? Means you can return anything, whatever you need as per your requirement. I hope this answers your question. Perfect. So let's start. I just installed, to save the time, I just installed the Alloy sample site. It's just the default CMS 12 installation. We'll take as a base. Let me just run the Alloy sample site to make sure everything is up and running. I might copy some chunk of code that what I prepared for the presentation to save the time, so we can cover more user cases practically. So this is my Alloy sample site CMS 12 AP server CMS. I just log in with my admin account. So here you can see like the CMS, see your default LS sample site. Now let me quickly give you more insight about the hot chocolate. Here you can see ChilliCream hot chocolate version 3, which is like open source GraphQL server for Microsoft .NET platform that is compliant with the newest GraphQL capabilities. Where like uh, it's like a normal, your GraphQL architecture where you can carry the data from the GraphQL and you can render the mobile app, desktop app, web apps, APIs, how you want to return. This is standalone .NET Core GraphQL server. So it is installed in your code and it will be deployed. So you can use this only with your Optimizely CMS PaaS platform, where you deploy DXP, or you can also use your on premises, but you cannot use with the SaaS because you don't have a control to deploy anything on the Optimally SaaS version. But yeah, it's like a .NET Core open source GraphQL servers which you can use with any .NET applications. But here we'll see the with Optimally CMS. It's a very rich set of documentation, like how to write a query in the code. Is like give like the code first approach, data annotation, how you can define the models or schema in the code, how you write a mutations, object types, subscriptions, right? You can subscribe for the event. If something is changed, you can get the notifications. How to get the list of the data, versioning, dynamic schema, how to fetch the queries, custom data type, like we have a standard type called like scalar types, integer, string. You have your own custom return type as well that you can return. You like also like have a like security documentation, how to you can have authentication authorizations for your GraphQL server, so no one can directly make a call. You can implement like the standard authentications or a JWT value token mechanisms where you can allow to access your data for a authorized request only. So there are a rich set of document that you can refer for achieve any kind of a custom requirement for your GraphQL server response. So if you see here, get started, is very straightforward. This example show how to create a .NET Core project, right? And then how to add the server. So here we are not using the .NET Core project, but we already have an install Alloy sample site. So we'll just try to install the GraphQL in the our Alloy sample site. So this is my package, HotChocolate GraphQL Core. Let me open the package manager. Yeah, let me stop the solution. So this is my default installations. I will just search for the HotChocolate ASP.NET Core, which is using latest version 13 plus, and just install. So what I did, I just installed the HotChocolate ASP.NET Core, which is the GraphQL server. This is installed. Yeah, just our documentation. Right. So this is we just install the package. This is how you can define your schema, which is actually your response or a content type. It may be mapped with your CMS content type. It is how you can write a query to get the data. Here's like a normal C# example. You return just a dummy object. But yeah, this data can be returned from your CMS. You can write a content loader. You can write any query you want, like get parent page, child page, any data. You can generate a response and send it back. And this is how you should register your GraphQL server. So let me take an example. Just opening my startup file, and I will just register. Add GraphQL server. So this just enable the support for the GraphQL server in your application. There are few configurations, and here you will register your query. So what I will do, let me just create a folder for the graph, and let me write a query, new class. I can say graph query.cs, and as per documentation, what I will do, I will just return the hard-coded data from here, get book. I need to register my class, my model. So if I say here, this is your GraphQL model or response. I have a class books and author. For now, I'm just putting both in a single file, right? I just written like a simple query in my graph, get books, and I have a book object. So this is your actual response. You can have like the way what property you want to include, and you can map those fields from your content type. We'll see later on. So this is how you register your query type, right? So the graph server will know which query to be registered. So this is just registered the graph server and the query type. Now we also need to enable the editor, so we can make the query from the front end. So app GraphQL, this is the the which enable the editors, HotChocolate ChilliCream editors. So here in the endpoint, what I will do, I will also register endpoint map GraphQL. So this will just by default will enable your endpoint slash GraphQL, which will load your banana cake pop-up for the GraphQL editors. You can you can have options to define your custom path for your editors. So that's it. This is basic integrations we did, and let's see how it look like. So that is what you have a full control on your schema query and the response. So your Alloy sample site is loading. If I go to CMS, this is your CMS. You may create your, if required, you can create your custom, navigations in the Optimizely to link with, the GraphQL editors. But for now, we are just typing manually. So once you type GraphQL, it will load your, banana cake pop-up for GraphQL editors. But yeah, uh, and yes, documents, browse schema. You can see you have a GraphQL schema book, and book have property author and title have a this. In Optimizely, if you remember, there is all the schema what was there, all your content type pages are available, as a ready in your schema. But here it is not everything. It is up to you what schema or what query you are using, what types are there in your query in the response. Only those classes which are referenced in your query and response are available as a schema. So this is your schema definitions, like graph query. That is what I name it, graph query over here. You can see the query type. There is a function called get books. So by default, prefix get is not there because it just so your query have a function called book, and region type is book, and this is your type, your model for a graph model like books, title, author as a string. So this is your exactly your schema is string. And to writing a query, if I here operations, if you aware of the query, I want a query, I want to get a book, and from book, I want title, I want author, within the author, I want name. So it's like standard syntax. You might be familiar with the how to write a GraphQL query. And if I run it, you can see the data what you have in your. It is like static data what we are setting right now, right? You can send the single object. It's the object as your data. You can send the list collections. So this is like just a quick integrations what we did with HotChocolate. Here is a query. You can add as many as functions over here. Whatever you want to return, right? You just say you want to return the some data from the page along with the parent page in the CMS. So you can write your own code over here, and you can get the parent page or child page, and you can just mock your object how you want and send it back. So that is the, advantage. right? So this is your, very simple, straightforward, basic integrations with the full capability of for the developers to write the, your headless architecture with the custom query and schema. Now, one more thing. Uh, what I will do now, let me take some code chunk over here, and here in my startup, right, I just had like, the GraphQL. So if I just go to CMS, right, server CMS, and if I log out, right, and if I try to access the website, so currently I'm not logged into CMS, but still I can able to access the GraphQL, right? So it's not secure editors. So that is how you can also restrict the access of your editors for specific environment. You can enable only for their environment. You can, restrict for the, prep, UAT, or like, for a specific user. So to do that, what you can do, I will just change this line of code. You can refer, the documentation of the hot chocolate. Everything is there. Nothing is, you know, new. So what I did, okay, I want GraphQL. I also require authorization, and I can set this tool means okay enable. So this tool is enable only for the dev environment. Okay, so if you deploy your code or solution to the your stage or prep or integration, if you type GraphQL, it's not accessible. Or it's up to you how you like to enable it. You might be disabled for the production, or you may define your roles or something where this tool is only accessible for the developers or for the admin, not for all the users of the CMS editors. So that is all how you can do it. And to enable authorizations, you also need to install additional package for this, where you can get the full setup capability of the hot chocolate authorization. So let me try to install that one. I'm going a bit fast because we are just running out of the time. We just have 15 minutes left. So I will try to see, showcase some more capabilities very fast. Let me do one thing. Let me open the another solution that what I have already coded, because it is difficult to code everything in just 10-15 minutes. Let me switch back to the another solution. Let me stop this one. So I will show you like, what I coded as a part of these demonstrations, and you can at least get the idea what you can do more with the GraphQL or chocolate. So uh, this is my CMS. We already installed the hot chocolate ASP.NET Core. You need to install one more package, hot chocolate ASP.NET Graph authorizations. And what we did, I added the authorization as well, right? We are not, let me time being comment this too, because it is not there. So I just added authorizations, add query type, and then you can just configure it authorizations over here. So your GraphQL ID only accessible in the dev environment, only for authorized users, right? So any users without login cannot access it. This is how you can enable authorization. What I did, if you see the code, I written some code over here. Because in the LS sample site, there's a couple of pages and blocks, but for the POC, we just added a few blocks. I get a one DTO for the graph, which return the data, block DTO of type, string types. I want to know what type of block it is. And then I have a TSA block, which is inherit from block DTO, and I'm just mapping in a constructor my content type TSA block of the Optimizely, and just doing a mapping. Okay, because in the TSA block you might have a plenty of properties of the content, right? That heading, text. But for now, I want to just send only two fields to my graph response, heading and text. So I just map my content type property, heading and text over here. Same way, I had one more block DTO, Chumbotan block, and from the LS sample side Chumbotan block, I just want to send in the heading and subheading for now, right? I just like have some object-oriented, code to inherit from my base class, and in the block type, I'm passing the type or name of the block, so it will assign to the type, so I know which type of block it is in the response. Same way I did for the site page DTO, which is for the site page, and I URL resolver I added in the dependency, and I want to return in my site page DTO my page URL. What is my meta title from your site page data of your Alloy based abstract class? I want to return the title, description, keyword. I will come back to this later on. But this is my DTO site page data. Then start page DTO, I hear from site page DTO, and I also want to return the main content. This is my main content area. This is interesting how you can return the different content types. This content area, you might have a THR block, Jumbotron block, many more blocks, right? So I will show you how we can return the mix of different block type from the content area into the Optimizely graph. Sorry, into the HotChocolate graph, right? Then I have a standard page DTO, which is coming from the site page DTO, returning the main content as a JSON. I'm returning the article page DTO. So there are a few, DTO I created. And if you see my startup class, you can register only one query. You cannot register multiple query type in your graph server. But yeah, in a single query, you have multiple functions, right? So I have a graph query that what I registered and just doing all the content load and URL resolver as an injection. uh, get start page. So I just have a one function in my graph, get start page, because I want to get the start page in my front end to read my some configurations, header data, footer data, navigations. So what I'm just doing, content loader, my start page, and output is my start page, and just return the DTO of the start page DTO, which is mapped from the start page, what I want to return into the graph. It's simple, I'm reading the DTO of the start page, right? I have a one more function get standard page by URL, right? So I want to pass the URL from the front, because in the headless, you might don't know the content ID or GUID, but when you bind the navigations, right, that uh, uh, what is the page URL from the navigation or routing. So you just pass your full URL where you want to redirect, and here we are just trying to map the content from the URL, and if it is available or exist, we map this particular URL of the content page to your DTO and return to your that object standard page from the LS sample site. One more example, I written article page by ID. This is integer ID. You may have a GUID as well. You may have one more parameter, my language. I want the content of this ID for this language. So I'm just getting the content reference of the ID, getting the content, making a DTO for the graph, and sending back. So here, whatever you want to map, you can map from your content type to your GraphQL DTO. This is get pages, right? Here you can see filtering. I will come back to this later on. Here you can see get pages. So I know all my LS sample sites have a base class site page data, and I want to get all the pages from my CMS, not only the particular children, but recursively all the pages. So what I did, just content loader get descendant all the children recursively from my start page into my start page, and then I'm using get content loader, get all the items for given content references. I'm checking if my page type is site page data or init of site page data. I'm sending this site page data to DTO as a page. So this might be you can get the list of all the pages to build the menu, navigation, search page in your front end using the graph, right? Okay, I want to get all the particular blocks. Example, I want all the TSA blocks from the CMS. So I just said, okay, I want to load the content type TSA block of content type TSA, and then I'm using the API content model usage. That is the Optimizely API, where you can find all the reference from the CMS of type TSA block, where we list all the content of that block, and we just filter okay all the content, because this return all the references not only of the TSA block, but also the pages where you reference or added the block on the content area. So I'm just filtering all the content blocks of the type TSA block and sending a return. So this is how I added few sample queries in my GraphQL, and if I run it, you will see how it will look like. So yeah, there's one question from the couple: when and how the data got indexed that our query just returned. So here no indexing. We are not storing data anywhere. Our data is in Optimizely CMS. When request come from the GraphQL query, it directly do a query to the Optimizely CMS to content loader repository. No need to index data. As soon as you publish something in the CMS, your data will be available in the graph query. But if you want, you can implement your custom caching. But yeah, we are not have any temporary or middle storage to index your content because it's doing a real-time query to your Optimally CMS. I hope this helps because Optimally Graph are not doing a query to your CMS database. It's query to your Optimizely Graph services, and you have a job in your applications which index your CMS data to the graph services. But here we don't have that. We are doing a direct real-time query to Optimizely CMS. So this what a few example functions we written in the GraphQL, and we'll see how to look like. We have a URL of my endpoint. So here you can see your in the tree view. If you see, I have a query GraphQL. So this is your exactly query what you written over here GraphQL. In that you have article page, return type article page DTO pages, which is array of side page DTO, standard page, TSA block, it's array, and you can see what data are swing. So it's like very clean and required schema that you can see over here, right? And you can simply like make a query. Example, query I want to get start page. So what pages and URL. So this is the error, but you will see other data as a response, but URL is null because I'm not authorized to access the URL property in my graph response or graph response. Reason in my DTO, I added the permission. Okay, this URL property only accessible to user whoever holds graph mutation, right? That's why even you write in your query URL, you will not get the response and you will get the error. But along with that, you will still get the data with that property null. So if I add this property, if I give this role to the user, right, what I'm querying, uh, I can be able to get the value of that as well. I'm just save. I might need to log out and log in, and that later you can able to get the data as well. I might need to clear my cookie. I hope you got the idea, like how you can write your own GraphQL query schema and the response. Because I enabled the authorizations on the GraphQL, it's forcing me to log in before I access the ID. See, I get the URL of the page. Uh, Here you can see on your query, I added the attributes called use filtering on the pages. That means you can do the filtering on the response of the get pages, right? Here, what I can do, where you can see the where my title, meta title contains or start with or equal to, all the filter will be, you know, available automatically. Alloy. See, if I type this, saves polar bear contains, right? So just by adding the use filtering on your uh, list or a response, you can just get the uh, filtering features on your query that you might not get for the other query. If I type my query example start page, right, and the start page you can write a multiple query. Okay, I want title, I want URL. If I run, you will see like start page as well as pages. But here in the start page, you will not able to get that filtering because it's not enabled on the start page, right? We have another function called standard page where I'm passing the URL as an argument, right? And I want the title, descriptions, and if I pass URL this of this page, I'm just passing hard coded over here for now. Okay, uh, let me pass URL equal to this, right? So you get the start page, standard page for that particular URL, title, description. So this is how you can combine the multiple query functions, and you can write a specific function. Okay, I want to start page for this URL. If you type something wrong or wrong URL, the content will not found and it will return null. You can pass the parameter as well. Here, if I type query and if I say my parameter is URL of type string, and here I can pass my parameter URL, and here because you have parameter URL, you will see automatically URL over here, and this is how you can pass your you know your parameter. This is how you'll get the data, right? So this is about this. We have one more things about in your schema definition. Uh, graph mutation, right? So similar to query, I had another class over here in my start page, uh, mutation type graph mutation, and I wrote a simple query to update the content of the CMS page, right? Update page, site page data, and I passing the URL, and you can programmatically update your title descriptions from the graph query. And here is what the query is. You can simply write a query over here, operation, and I can say instead of yeah, something I'm just doing a mistake in the query. It's not handy, but yeah, it's like you can pass your object over here, and you can update it back in the CMS. So once you hit this, ideally it is calling your particular functions over here. As we are just running 15 minutes more. So any other questions, query? Feel free to raise a questions if you have anything. You can raise your hand. So, we just like seen, the custom hot chocolate integration of the GraphQL Optimizely CMS, where you have a full control as a developer to define your own server, query scheme, and the response, and you can return the data the way how you want. Whatever data you want, you can return it. Any questions? Okay, thanks. Thank you, team, for the joining. Have a nice evening. Bye. Take care.